Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Andrew. So, how do we fix this? How do we fix the idea of entitlement when it comes to retail stores, any other stores, restaurants, fast food places, whatever? I actually think for this one there's some good news, and I think stores are starting to fight back, and I think that's good. I'm going to touch on that at the end. But I think first and foremost, like I mentioned in the customer is always right video that I did, I think we should change that to the customer is always right until they demonstrate that they are wrong. So to use one of the examples from that video, I was in a clothing store when a lady returned clothing with a hole in it. However, she had been wearing it and washing it and using it for over a year, and then it had gotten a hole, and so she thought that she should be able to return it and get a brand new one. In a way, I wish that was true and you could do that, but obviously you can't. So she demonstrated that she was wrong in that situation, and therefore she should be told no. And I think that is one of the things that we need to normalize again. We need to be able to normalize telling people no. There are a lot of the people in this world these days that can't seem to use that word, and I don't personally understand that myself, but I know that that's becoming a problem. I know some people that when they're like their boss will call them and they know that their boss is asking them to come in for extra work, and they're like, oh, I don't want to answer. And I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, well, my boss has asked me to come into extra work. And I'm like, just answer and say you can't. I think actually most employers will appreciate, although they'll be annoyed at you saying you can't, they'll appreciate the fact that they actually got an answer, because most people just like let it go to voicemail and then never answer. And so that employer is left hanging. So I think being able to say no to somebody is important, even when the customer is supposedly always right, which obviously we know they aren't. So I think that's the thing. I also think employers, so supervisors, managers, owners, should be supporting their staff way more than they are. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses, or a number of businesses, I shouldn't say a lot, a number of businesses throw their staff under the bus in order that they don't have to deal with it or take responsibility for an issue that arises. I had a friend who used to work at a clothing store, and he got called into his manager's office and got reamed out because a customer claimed that he hadn't done enough to help them find everything they wanted. Now, the problem was that the thing that they wanted didn't actually exist. I guess they wanted, they saw a really cool pattern on a shirt, but they didn't like the color that the pattern came on, so they wanted one that was a different color. But the company that make those shirts didn't make that pattern with that color. So how is that my friend's responsibility to magically make that happen when the company doesn't even make those? And the manager didn't even take a side. He just says you have to do more to help people, and wrote him up. So you need to start listening to what your staff are saying. You need to understand there's more than one side to every issue, and just listen and see, because most of the times these people that come in and complain to managers, the Karens as they're now known, they're super entitled, and their requests are absolutely ridiculous requests. So again, goes back to the customer's always right until they demonstrate they are wrong. And I think that would also help with some of the toxicity in a workforce. If the workforce felt like they were being supported, I think that would make the workplace environment a much healthier environment for the staff. For people who come in and treat these staff members like shit, I know you're never going to do this because you're entitled. But just imagine if you were in their position and someone was doing what you were to them. Would you enjoy that? Would you think that would be... I literally asked someone this at a store, and they're like, well, that's their job. No, that's not their job. That's not their job. Their job is not to take shit from you. That's not in their, job description at all. So people need to realize that these are people too. They're not slaves or servants at your beck and calling. And you need to realize, obviously, that guess what? Not everything, I'm not always going to get my own way. But again, these are entitled people who can't think that way. So, as I said in my generic video, as I said in my pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers video, the easiest way to get people to become not entitled is to have them realize, treat others how they would want to be treated. The problem is they're entitled and they can't think that way. Or very rarely can they think that way. So I don't expect what I just talked about to actually happen. It would be nice, but unrealistic. I think the other thing that companies can do, and as I've said, I've been seeing this a lot more lately, and good for these companies. I think you need to stand up for yourself, especially when you're being attacked unreasonably. There have been one of the ways entitled people fight against companies is by giving them like really shitty reviews, even if the review is not truthful in the slightest. They'll just give a horrible review and paint the worst picture they can of their experience there, because they should have been a king in the store and they weren't treated like a king or a queen for that matter. So what a lot of companies are starting to do is actually starting to respond to some of these bad reviews that they know are incorrect. Now, there is a way to remove bad reviews. I know Google has a system where if it's not an honest review, you can get Google to look at it. Apparently, that process is very long, and that review stays up on Google through the process, so people will see it. And most of the time, from what I've heard, Google won't take them down anyway at the end. So the better answer, and what companies are starting to do, is actually just reply to the reviews and give their side of the story. And then people realize, because when you read a review, what I like to do when I read reviews, I like to read the 5-star reviews, and I like to read the 1-star reviews, because in my mind those are the ones that are the most important. And you can tell when a 1-star review just doesn't seem right. It may not sound like just right, but you're not sure why. But if then a company says underneath it, oh yeah, by the way, this person did this, and you're like, oh yeah, no, that probably makes sense. Now, obviously, it's one word against another, although I am generally going to believe the company, especially if I had a certain feeling about the review to begin with. So I think that's a good thing that they're doing. Those are some suggestions as to how we can kind of. I don't think it's going to fix it. I think there's always going to be entitled people, but maybe this will decrease the entitled people. I was debating in my head whether if people started hearing the words no, whether that would actually help against their entitlement or not. Like, would they realize, oh, I'm just not going to get this, so and then kind of wind down their entitlement a little bit, or whether they would just keep going full speed ahead, maybe go on to the next store and maybe find someone there that will play into their entitlement. I think it probably, truth be told, depends on the person. But I hope people being told no. I know if people are told no more as children, it significantly decreases the chance of entitlement. But there you go. Maybe we need to start dealing with them like they're children. I don't know. I think that goes a little bit too far. But those are my ideas. Maybe if you have some of your own, share them in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.